In this video, we're going to be reviewing the Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports and Emergency Safety Interventions Policy. This video will serve as an overview of essential components of the PBIS and ESI policy. It is the responsibility of each direct care professional to read the policy in full and comply with all sections. The full policy can be found in the Policy section of the intranet. This policy is divided into 7 sections: policy objective, scope, policy statement, policy violations, definitions, forms or related policies, and applicable laws and regulations. Heartspring believes the residential day school environment should ensure the dignity, care, safety, and welfare of all students and staff members. Efforts to promote positive interactions and solutions to potential crisis should be used. A non-aversive, effective behavioral system, such as positive behavior intervention and supports, shall be used to create a learning environment that promotes the use of evidence-based behavioral interventions, thus enhancing academic, social, and behavioral outcomes for all students. This policy applies to all Heartspring employees. Heartspring employees will only engage in a more restrictive emergency safety intervention if an imminent risk of serious danger or harm to self or others is likely to occur, and other less restrictive and less intrusive interventions have been attempted first. The use of an approved ESI may be used as a last resort. Heartspring does not utilize seclusion or restraint procedures as an educational or therapeutic intervention tool. These interventions shall occur only in a manner that protects the safety of all students, staff, and other adults at school. Every use of restraint or seclusion shall be documented and reported in accordance with the requirements set forth in this policy, which is in accordance with the Kansas state law for ESIs. If a student's home state law has more restrictive requirements for any section, that state's law will be followed. Definitions for specific terms can be found at the end of the policy. The following are prohibited under all circumstances, including emergency safety situations: prone or supine restraint, electrical shock, corporal punishment, the deprivation of basic needs, using non-NCI certified staff to assist with physical management procedures, mechanical restraints, chemical restraints, instructional control, aversive behavioral interventions, punitive-based exercise, restraint or seclusion as a punishment or consequence of behavior or convenience of staff, using pressure points, pain compliance, or joint manipulation techniques, securing a student to another student or fixed object, dragging or lifting of the student by the hair or clothing. Section 3.2, Behavioral Intervention Plan and Individualized Treatment Plan. Each student receiving special education services will have a written ITP developed by the IEP team and documented in the student's IEP. The plan must include a definition of target behaviors, a description of interventions designed to increase and strengthen replacement behaviors, including positive programming, reinforcement strategies, and behavioral skills training, a description of setting events, reactive strategies, and the crisis plan to be utilized when interfering behavior occurs, personnel responsible for implementing the plan, data collection procedures and methods for monitoring the plan, general recommendations, a criteria for success, transition, and discharge plan. When evaluating an intervention for potential use, the impact of the intervention on the student's physical freedom, social interaction, personal dignity, and privacy will be carefully considered. When monitoring the effectiveness of the behavior plan, team members will make every effort to plan for generalization and maintenance of skills across settings. Interventions will be evaluated by a BCBA, behavior specialist, teacher, parents, and other stakeholders involved in the intervention on a regular basis, utilizing baseline data and ongoing progress monitoring. Parent input will be solicited, and parents will be notified of any significant changes to the plan. Physical restraints may be used only when there is an immediate risk of physical harm to the student or others and no other safe or proactive intervention has been effective. Restraints may not be used for the purpose of convenience, to force compliance, or in place of behavioral interventions, including de-escalation strategies. If an employee uses a physical restraint as a last resort, they must be appropriately trained to protect the care, welfare, dignity, and safety of the student, continually observe the student in restraint for indications of physical or mental distress, and seek immediate medical assistance if there is a concern by means of a monitor staff who is not hands-on with the student, use verbal strategies and research-based de-escalation techniques in an effort to help the student regain composure, remove the student from physical restraint immediately when the immediate risk of physical harm to self or others has dissipated, ensure that his or her appropriate usual mode of communication is readily available during the incident and understand their legal obligation to be able to communicate effectively with the student, conduct a debriefing including all involved staff to evaluate the trigger for the incident, staff response, and methods to address the student's behavioral needs, and complete all reports and document their observations of the student no later than the end of their shift on the day of the incident. Mechanical restraints are prohibited for individuals from the state of Illinois. The use of mechanical restraints for the purpose of discipline, punishment, or convenience is not allowed. Mechanical restraints are only allowed for non-Illinois students under the following circumstances. Safety gear can only be used to prevent or reduce damage from self-injurious behavior. Use of safety gear for elopement, aggression, or other interfering behaviors is strictly prohibited. Any use of safety gear for a student must have approval from the following parties: parents or legal guardian, Heartspring nurse or physician, and the director of the ABA department. Consent for the use of safety gear will be renewed with the above listed parties every 12 months after being reviewed by the team for appropriateness of continued use. The types of safety gear used to protect students engaging in self-injurious behavior include helmet, arm splints, mitts, and other safety gear may be considered as appropriate for the student's needs following the same approval process above. Approval for safety gear use will be written into the student's ITP, including a detailed plan for each instance of its use. Safety gear will be applied only as a last resort when a student is engaging in self-injurious behavior. Other avenues of prevention must be exhausted first. Under no circumstance can mechanical restraints be utilized as an emergency intervention for aggression or other destructive behaviors. Safety gear will be removed when the student is no longer an imminent danger to him or herself. Blocking pads are used to provide a protective barrier between aggressive behavior and staff members. The use of a blocking pad, mat, or other device or equipment as a means of restraint is prohibited. Seclusion is prohibited for individuals from the state of Illinois. For non-Illinois students, seclusion may be used only when there is an imminent risk of physical harm to others and no other safe and proactive intervention has been effective. Seclusion may not be used for the purpose of convenience, to force compliance, or in place of behavioral interventions, including de-escalation strategies. Seclusion is a last resort safety intervention that provides an opportunity for the student to regain self-composure while maintaining the safety of others. Seclusion may only be used in designated seclusion rooms. No alternate spaces can be utilized as seclusion, including the student's bedroom, any other room or area, and placing mats fully around a student blocking them in. Additionally, no items can be placed in the seclusion room with a student, including mats or other objects. All seclusion rooms meet the Kansas requirements and are equipped with a locking door. The lock automatically disengages when the employee viewing the student walks away from the seclusion room, such as in case of emergency, including fire or severe weather per the Kansas ESI regulations. Seclusion shall not be used for the convenience of staff, as a substitute for educational program, as a form of discipline or punishment, as a substitute for less restrictive alternatives, as a substitute for inadequate staffing, as a substitute for staff training and positive behavior supports and crisis prevention and intervention, as a means to coerce, retaliate, or in a manner that endangers a student, or students who engage in self-injurious behaviors that could cause them harm if they were placed in seclusion. If an employee uses seclusion, that employee must be appropriately trained to protect the care, welfare, dignity, and safety of the student, continually visually observe the student in seclusion for indications of physical or mental distress and seek immediate medical assistance if there is a concern, use verbal strategies and research-based de-escalation techniques in an effort to help the student regain composure, remove the student from the seclusion immediately when the immediate risk of physical harm to self or others has dissipated, conduct a debriefing including all involved staff to evaluate the trigger for the incident, staff response, and methods to address the student's behavioral needs, and complete all reports and document their observations of the student no later than the end of their shift on the day of the incident. If a student has 10 or more instances of restraint or seclusion within a 30-day period, The Heartspring team shall conduct a review of the current ITP and FBA and make any identified revisions to the areas which are ineffective. For Illinois students, Heartspring follows the ISBE guidelines for ESIs for all individuals from the state of Illinois that are more restrictive than Kansas regulations and Heartspring policy. This includes isolated timeout or seclusion is prohibited. Heartspring seclusion rooms do not meet the minimum requirements of Illinois law for seclusion due to the door being equipped with a locking mechanism that disengages if not physically held in a locking position. Illinois ESI forms are utilized for the documentation of each incident and submitted to ISBE within 48 hours of the incident using ISBE Student Information System. Parents are notified of an incident on the same day of the incident in compliance with Kansas and Illinois law, and the full report is sent within one school day. In addition to the full report of the ESI, each notification also must include a copy of the standards for when ESIs can be used, parent and student rights, including the parent or guardian right to request a meeting following the incident, and that this meeting must be held within 2 school days of the request, unless extension is requested by the parent or guardian, the right to file a state complaint, the complaint process, and other information to assist parents or guardians with navigating the process and the procedures for the state complaint, mediation and due process procedures for IDEA eligible students. In documenting any less restrictive and intrusive alternative measures that were used prior to the ESI, an explanation of why those measures were ineffective and deemed inappropriate is required. The student's BCBA is responsible for entering Illinois ESIs that occur within the school day into the Student Information System for the Illinois State Board of Education within 48 hours of the incident occurring. All Heartspring school administrators are notified of each ESI. These administrators include the following listed individuals. One of these individuals also is required to review the ESI report and sign off upon completion of the review. When a student experiences 3 instances of physical restraint during the school day within a 30-day period, the student's BCBA or behavior specialist shall initiate a review of the effectiveness of the procedures used. This is done by scheduling a meeting and providing a 10-day notice to parents or guardians within 48 hours of the 3rd ESI within a 30-day period. The following 6 bullet points describe the meeting process, who would be involved, and what would happen if the parents or guardians decided to waive that meeting. These meetings do not need to be held for residential ESIs. Residential ESIs will be monitored and addressed through the Heartspring policy process of initiating an internal review after 10 instances of ESI within a 30-day process. Mechanical restraints are prohibited for Illinois students. Mechanical restraints does not include any restraint used to treat a student's medical needs, protect a student known to be at risk of injury resulting from lack of coordination or frequent loss of consciousness, position a student with the physical disabilities in a manner specified in the student's IEP, provide a supplementary aid or service or an accommodation, promote student safety in vehicles used to transport students. For any restraint that exceeds 15 minutes or repeated restraints which have occurred during any 3-hour period within the school day, a member of the safety check team must evaluate the situation. The evaluation must consider the appropriateness of continuing the procedure in use, including whether the student has ceased presenting the specific behavior for which the restraint was imposed, and the need for water, restroom, medication, or other intervention. The results of the evaluation must be committed to writing, and copies of this documentation must be included with the Illinois restraint form. The safety check participant must remain for evaluation until the restraint is disengaged. The Heartspring employee completing an ESI form will also document whether the student was injured, as well as whether medical staff were contacted. If this area of the form is marked as yes, the medical department is notified. Upon receipt of a documented injury, medical personnel provides care instructions to the notifying staff or examines the students for confirmation and extent of the injury. Upon completion of examination by medical personnel and dependent on confirmation and extent of an injury, parents are notified by either an email or phone call by the end of every shift, but no later than 24 hours of the incident occurring by a supervisor. School and residential personnel shall be trained and certified by NCI for behavior or physical management as appropriate given their position. Recertifications occur in line with NCI requirements and recommendations. School and residential personnel must attend NCI drills 1 time per month at least 9 out of 11 months of the year to remain certified throughout the year. Training will address at a minimum the following areas. The following 11 bullet points are items that are trained on during initial NCI certification, annual renewal, monthly drills, and other environmental specific trainings offered throughout the year. The training department will maintain electronic documentation of trainings provided and lists of participants in each NCI training program. All students serving staff are required to complete 16 hours of training in ABA at the time of hire, as well as complete annual continuous development trainings. This training includes strategies for de-escalation, positive behavioral supports, antecedent and treatment procedures, and other behavior analytic procedures to decrease the likelihood of the need for physical management procedures. The ABA department will maintain documentation of trainings provided and lists of participants in each ABA training. Upon the use of each ESI, Heartspring must notify the parent or guardian and the school district on the same day of the incident. Heartspring will contact the district representative via email and attempt to contact the parent or guardian using at least 2 methods of contact, one of which is the preferred method of contact designated by the parent or guardian. Heartspring provides written documentation of the ESI used to the parent or guardian and school district representative no later than the school day following the day on which the ESI was used. Every ESI report includes the following information. Heartspring may group incidents when documenting the items above, if the triggering issue necessitating the ESI is the same and within a close time frame, 10 minutes or less, on the same school day. In addition to the above information, Heartspring provides the parent or guardian the following information. After the first incident in which an ESI is used with a student during the school year, the school shall provide the following information in printed form to the parent or guardian or upon the parent's written request via email. For non-Illinois students, after each incident, a parent or guardian may request a meeting with the school to discuss and debrief the incident. A parent or guardian may request the meeting verbally, in writing, or electronically. Heartspring will hold a meeting requested within 10 days of the date on which the parent or guardian sent the request, and the meeting shall include the parent or guardian and the district representative from the student's home school district. The focus of any meeting requested due to an ESI incident shall be to discuss proactive ways to prevent the need for ESIs and to reduce incidents in the future. If the parent or guardian is unavailable to attend within the 10 school day limit, this limit shall be extended. For Illinois students, after each incident, a parent or guardian will be notified of their right to request a meeting, request this meeting verbally, in writing, or electronically, request that meeting be convened via telephone or video conference. This notification will also include information on a parent or guardian's right to file a state complaint, the complaint process, and other information to assist parents or guardians with navigating the process, and the procedures for the state complaint, mediation, and due process procedures for IDEA eligible students. This next section outlines the dispute resolution procedure in the event that a parent or guardian believes that an ESI has been used in violation of this policy or in violation of the state regulations. All ESI data is collected and reviewed on a monthly basis, and a quarterly report is generated and shared internally with Heartspring. Heartspring creates a quarterly report of the use of ESIs, which includes the total number of incidents in which ESIs were used on students at Heartspring in the previous month, the total number of students with behavior intervention plans subject to an ESI, the number of students physically restrained, the number of students placed in seclusion, the maximum and median numbers of minutes a student was placed in seclusion, the maximum number of incidents in which ESIs were used on a student. The quarterly report is shared within Heartspring and available to districts and state representatives at their request. An annual summary report is completed each year by the last day of January. Any employee found to be in violation of this policy will be subject to disciplinary actions up to and including termination. Section 5 includes the definitions of various items found in Section 3. Feel free to pause the video to review definitions. Forms and related policies include the seclusion and restraint reports for Kansas and Illinois, the Prohibited Practice Form, and the Abuse and Neglect Policy and Procedures. For more information on Kansas or Illinois ESI laws, you can follow the hyperlinks listed in Section 7.